When life falls apart, when everything you've built, brick by brick, starts to crumble like a house of cards, it's tempting to panic. But pause. Just breathe. Because sometimes, the collapse isn't chaos, it's clarity in disguise. You see, there's a strange kind of wisdom in the mess. And if absolutely nothing is going the way you planned, maybe, just maybe, you've outgrown your own blueprint. That's not failure. That's freedom. Most of us live locked inside the prison of expectation. We draw up plans, set goals, create timelines. We tell ourselves exactly who we're supposed to become and when it's supposed to happen. But what if life doesn't care about that script? What if, when your plans fall through, something more authentic has a chance to break through? The failure of your plan isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of one you never saw coming. What we once labeled as obstacles start to look a lot more like invitations. The cracks in the design? They let the light in. Most people go through life like they're pushing a boulder uphill, straining to make reality match some mental image. It's exhausting. But then, there's this moment, maybe it's this one, when life itself says, stop. Pause. Not as punishment, but as redirection. Think about a tightly coiled spring. The tighter you grip it, the more pressure builds. But the moment you let go, all that stored energy is released. That's surrender. Not as weakness, but as a catalyst for transformation. Trying to control everything? That creates tension. Trusting the flow? That's where freedom lives. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means shifting your stance from resistance to receptivity. Ancient wisdom says, be still and know that I am God. That stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about the kind of quiet confidence that recognizes there's something bigger at play. Something wiser than your conscious mind, orchestrating a reality you don't have to micromanage. You are not the conductor. You are the awareness the music plays through. And yet, here we are, obsessed with certainty. We want guarantees. We want steps A to Z mapped out with zero surprises. But growth? Real growth? It doesn't move in straight lines. It spirals. It bends toward the light, not logic. Look at trees. Look at rivers. They don't panic when their path shifts, they adapt. They don't mourn the detour. They follow the flow. You weren't born to trace a predictable line from birth to success. You're here to discover. And discovery requires surprise. When you stop being a prisoner to your imagined outcomes, something opens up. You create space for outcomes you couldn't have dreamed of. Water doesn't fight with the rock in its path, it moves around it, over it, through it. That's not weakness. That's power without resistance. So if your plans are in shambles, if life is pulling you in directions you didn't expect, good. Maybe your destiny never fit inside the tidy box of your expectations. What feels like loss is often just life making space for alignment. You're not broken. You're being broken open. Standing here, in this liminal space between what was and what could be, this is sacred ground. And in this stillness, something ancient becomes clear. The more you try to force the outcome, the more you push it away. Desire mixed with fear becomes resistance. We don't realize it, but all that grasping, all the effort to make it happen, is what blocks the very transformation we're craving. Control, for all its comfort, is just fear in disguise. But surrender? That's real alignment. That's saying, I'm not letting go of my dream, I'm letting go of the friction between my dream and reality. It's like planting a seed. You bury it in soil. Darkness. Silence. And then, you wait. You trust. The gardener doesn't yell at the pot or demand a schedule. Growth happens in its own time. Your life works the same way. When you release the urge to control, you invite the unseen intelligence to move on your behalf. The path that unfolds might not look like what you imagined, but it will carry a signature you'll recognize deep down. One of truth. One of perfect design. There's an art to surrendering, It doesn't mean abandoning your goal. It means resting in the deep knowing that your vision is already real in the space of consciousness. That it's unfolding, even now, even if you can't see it yet. The universe doesn't respond to anxious striving. It responds to confident stillness. Begging. Pleading. Frantic visualizing, these aren't signs of passion. They're signals of lack. Of separation. But surrender says, I don't need proof to believe. I believe, and the proof will come. That certainty, that inner knowing, it becomes your creative signature. The world mirrors back what you embody. And it can't reflect wholeness if you're staring into it fragmented by doubt. Think of the caterpillar. It doesn't figure out how to become a butterfly. It dissolves. Fully. No control. No plan. Just surrender. And from that silence, wings form. If your life feels like it's disintegrating, maybe it's not destruction, it's restructuring. Maybe you're not falling apart, you're falling into place. What looks like the end could be the beginning of flight. So don't rush to fix it. Don't run to rebuild what was. The mind panics in the unknown, but the soul celebrates. This is where change becomes possible. Here, in this space where nothing is going according to plan, you are finally available. You're finally pliable. The paradox is, when you release the grip, you gain access. You open the vault to a life not built on control, but on surrender. Where your mind sees disorder, consciousness sees rebirth. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Plans unravel, structures collapse, and something deeper begins to stir. Revelation. When life stops obeying your agenda, that's not a failure, it's a flare. A signal that something higher is at work. Something that sees what you can't. Something that knows where you need to go, even if you don't. The unplanned path might seem chaotic. But often, it's perfect choreography. Not a detour. A divine design. What you thought was misalignment may actually be the correction you didn't know you needed. In a world addicted to clarity and obsessed with control, not knowing can feel like danger. But think back. Haven't your biggest transformations happened when everything familiar fell apart? Real change doesn't always arrive in comfort. It comes wrapped in confusion, disguised as endings. Only later does it reveal itself for what it was, a beginning. So when nothing is going according to plan, know this, life isn't falling apart. Life is falling into place. In the space between what was and what could be, it's time to understand the paradox at the heart of all creation. The more you try to control the outcome, the more you push it away. Most people don't realize that their constant effort to shape life, to force it into a specific mold, is what actually holds their transformation hostage. Control might feel safe, it might feel familiar, but more often than not, it's just a mask for distrust. Surrender, on the other hand, isn't giving up. It's the ultimate alignment. It's saying, I trust that life knows what it's doing, even when I don't. When you surrender, you're not abandoning your dreams. You're simply dropping the resistance between your dreams and the present moment. Think about a seed buried in the soil. It doesn't panic in the dark. It doesn't scream for sunlight. It simply rests, trusting that something unseen is working on its behalf. The gardener doesn't dig it up every day to check on its progress. There's faith in the rhythm of nature. And your life, your growth, follows the same natural laws. The moment you release the constant need to monitor, manage, and manipulate your desires, you allow the invisible forces to begin aligning things for you. And no, it might not unfold the way you envisioned, but that's because it's unfolding better. It's carrying the fingerprint of a design greater than your logic. The art of surrender doesn't mean abandoning effort. It means taking aligned action, not anxious action. It's not about chasing what you want with desperation, but embodying the knowing that what's meant for you is already on its way. The universe doesn't react to fear. It responds to clarity. It responds to confidence. It mirrors what you embody, not what you pretend to believe, but what you truly hold as real. So instead of pleading with life, start affirming. Instead of visualizing from lack, start living as if it's already done. This is not delusion, it's creation. You're not trying to convince the world. You're aligning your energy with the outcome you desire, and the world simply reflects it back. The world is a mirror, and if the face you bring to it is fractured by doubt, it cannot show you wholeness. But when you walk in certainty, even quiet, internal certainty, everything starts to respond differently. Look at the caterpillar again. Its transformation doesn't come from struggle. It comes from surrender. It dissolves fully. It lets go of all it knew. And in that space of not knowing, something miraculous takes shape. Wings form in silence, not in striving. So if your life feels like it's falling apart, maybe you're not being punished. Maybe you're being remade. Maybe this isn't destruction, it's creation in disguise. What looks like chaos to the mind is often clarity to the soul. And if you're in that place right now, that uncertain, unstructured, in-between, pause. Don't rush to rebuild. Don't scramble for the next plan. This is sacred ground. This is where the most authentic version of you has a chance to emerge. The mind fears the unknown, but the soul thrives in it. In the unknown, you are finally accessible, finally open, finally moldable. The paradox is this: by letting go, you gain access. When you release your grip, you open the door to a life not built on force but on flow. The universe doesn't need your hustle, it needs your alignment. When plans fall apart, what's actually happening is the invitation to wake up. Maybe the job disappeared, the relationship ended, the door slammed shut, not to hurt you, but to clear the scaffolding that was keeping you small. Without your plans, you have no choice but to step into the unknown. And it's there, outside the safety of expectation, that your true identity begins to rise. Not the identity tied to outcomes, achievements, or timelines, but the deeper truth of who you are, unbound and aware. It's in this space that you start to hear your intuition again. You become more sensitive to the quiet inner voice that had been drowned out by all the noise. The expectations of others fade. The need to prove disappears. And in that stillness, your inner compass starts to guide you. You're no longer driven by what should happen. You become available to what wants to happen through you. This is what ancient teachings call the pathless path, a way forward that isn't mapped by logic, but revealed by presence. Lao Tzu once said, "A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving." That doesn't mean you wander aimlessly. It means you walk with trust. You move with awareness. You stop measuring success by distance covered and start measuring it by alignment. In this new rhythm, every step becomes sacred. Every moment becomes a response to inner wisdom. You realize that you were never lost, you were just shedding the illusion of control. The wisdom of the unplanned path is not found in knowing what's next. It's in trusting that whatever is next, it's exactly what you need. You don't walk this path with a to-do list. You walk it with presence, with curiosity. And in that space, when nothing is going according to plan, life finally begins to move according to truth. The moment you start trusting the unplanned path, something shifts. You stop needing to force things. You stop clinging to timelines. You release the pressure to figure it all out. And instead, you begin to move in harmony with life's deeper rhythm. A rhythm that doesn't demand, it invites. That doesn't beg, it flows. Striving was the old way. Striving belonged to the version of you that believed worth had to be earned. But flow? Flow belongs to the version of you that knows worth is a given. That your value doesn't live in a future moment, it's already here, now. Once you make that shift, the energy you used to spend resisting life becomes available for creating. Movement stops feeling like a grind and starts feeling like a dance. And no, flow doesn't mean being passive. It means being responsive. It means showing up with clarity, not panic. You don't give up on your dreams, you begin to embody them. You stop chasing success like it's some external prize and start expressing it as an inner state. The inner work becomes the outer evidence. And life starts to respond, not because you're pushing harder, but because you're vibrating clearer. Like water finding the path of least resistance, you start to move where life is open, not where ego insists. This way of living isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about trying harder. It's about being truer. Striving is often fear in disguise, a fear that without constant effort, nothing will happen. But flow says, what's mine will find me. I don't need to scream my desires into the void. I whisper them within, and life echoes back. This shift is subtle, but powerful. Relationships soften. Decisions become easier. Your breath deepens. Success, when it arises from flow, doesn't feel like strain. It feels like it always belonged to you. Because it did. You don't abandon ambition, you purify it. You no longer chase from lack. You create from overflow. You move, not to fix yourself, but to express yourself. In this space, time stretches. Energy aligns. When nothing is going according to plan and you begin flowing instead of striving, you uncover something deeper, a realization that you were never meant to chase victory. You were meant to embody it. The more you force the river, the more you fight against your own nature. But when you trust its current, something powerful awakens inside you. Victory stops being this distant, glittering prize at the end of the perfect path. It becomes a frequency you live in, a state of consciousness you operate from. And when you live from that place, everything around you begins to reconfigure to match it. Victory is not a reward for suffering. It's your natural state, waiting for recognition. Yet most people spend their lives rehearsing failure, bracing for the worst, carrying themselves with the posture of defeat. But the moment you decide to embody the energy of someone who has already won, everything changes. Your voice steadies. Your breath deepens. The room receives you differently. People respond not to what you say, but to what you radiate. That inner certainty becomes your magnetism. To become the victory doesn't mean walking around with arrogance. It means moving through life in alignment. The victorious mindset doesn't shout, it resonates. It doesn't beg, it radiates. Instead of wondering, what if I fail, you start living from a place of, I cannot fail. Not because every step is smooth, but because even the missteps serve the unfolding. When your internal state is no longer dictated by the external world, you reclaim your creative authority. You walk toward closed doors as if they're already open. You move as if the world is adjusting to meet your frequency, because eventually, it does. We've been taught to think confidence follows success. But the truth is flipped. Success follows confidence. And not the loud, performative kind. But the quiet, grounded kind. The kind that says, I am enough. I've already arrived. You don't wait for life to prove your worth. You live from the knowing that your worth is not up for negotiation. Your job isn't to chase victory. It's to stop resisting it. You've already won in consciousness. Now your only task is to express the truth in how you walk, how you speak, how you show up. Even your setbacks become stages. Your challenges become confirmation. Life stops being a battleground and becomes your canvas. And yes, your body feels it too. Energy flows differently. Fatigue fades, not because the work changes, but because resistance is gone. You sleep deeper. Your decisions sharpen. Your posture transforms. You're no longer surviving your life, you're embodying your divine inheritance. So when nothing is going according to plan, yet you feel grounded, whole, powerful, that's victory. That's alignment. That's what it means to awaken to your original state. Not the future you. Not some polished, upgraded version. But you now. Real. Aligned. Enough. Becoming the victory means you stop waiting for the world to crown you. You walk as if you already wear the robe. You don't chase the miracle, you realize you are the miracle. You don't ask permission to rise, you rise because it's your nature. And when that happens, life stops being about achieving something new. It becomes about remembering something ancient. Something that's always been true, You were never broken. You were never behind. And you were never without power. The moment you recognize this, congratulations are in order. Not because everything finally went your way, but because you finally stood in your truth. And from that truth, something surprising begins to rise, not the desire to do more, but the calling to release. Because after you've embodied the victory, after you've lived the truth that you've already won, the final step is an accumulation. It's closure. True freedom doesn't just come from stepping into your power. It comes from letting go of everything that told you didn't have any. Victory requires the burial of old identities, the shedding of old stories, the graceful release of dreams that were never really yours. And in that letting go, you step beyond winning and losing entirely. Closure isn't a sign of defeat, it's a liberation. But many fear it. They think it means admitting failure. In reality, closure is a sacred choice to stop pouring your energy into what no longer serves. To stop dragging around the ghost of expired plans. The jobs that didn't work out. The relationships that unraveled. The paths that disappeared. None of those were mistakes. They were initiations, portals to the you that could only be born through loss. And every time you resisted those endings, you delayed your own emergence. Closure clears the stage for your next revelation. There's a profound peace that comes from no longer gripping what's already gone. You start to see the difference between persistence and attachment. Between fighting for alignment and clinging out of fear. Sometimes, true strength is in the soft exhale. In the courage to walk away. Closure means no longer needing an apology. No longer needing closure from someone else. No longer needing a perfect ending. It means you stop waiting for the past to make sense. Because you realize everything you need is already here, in the now. And when closure becomes a conscious practice, life begins to feel different. Your energy stops leaking into old stories. Space opens up, within and around you. Space for stillness. For joy. For creativity. Closure reclaims your power and redirects it toward what truly matters. Relationships deepen, not because they're flawless, but because you're no longer projecting old wounds onto new moments. Goals sharpen, not from grinding harder, but from seeing clearly. From no longer being weighed down by disappointment. You start living with open hands and a clear heart. Not haunted by what was, but fully ready for what's becoming. So if your life feels like it's off script, chaotic, unpredictable, congratulations. You are in sacred territory. The unknown is not a punishment. It's a portal. And it's not asking you to be fearless. It's asking you to be reverent. What's waiting for you isn't a shinier version of your old life, it's the unveiling of your truest self. And when nothing is going according to plan, maybe, just maybe, it's because something far more beautiful is finally going according to purpose.